Have you ever watched a romantic movie where he runs after her at the airport in the rain, or she suddenly realizes that his million roses are happiness and thought, well, why isn't it like that for me? We've all been there. Since childhood, we've been fed this beautiful, sweet picture of ideal love, a chance encounter, butterflies in the stomach, a couple of grand gestures, and then they lived happily ever after. Flowers, serenades, candlelit dinners in expensive restaurants, the list goes on. But let's be honest, how often does your real life, your real relationships match this scenario? Hand on heart, how often have you caught yourself thinking that even if there are flowers and dinners happen, something essential is still missing? Or, conversely, that all this superficial tinsel doesn't save you from an inner feeling of emptiness or misunderstanding? The problem is that these movie stereotypes are like beautiful but completely unnutritious fast food for our souls. They create unrealistic expectations. They make us chase after external glitter, after the picture, while missing the very essence, the very foundation of relationships. And when reality, our ordinary human reality, doesn't match this glossy cover, and believe me, it never matches 100%, what do we feel? Disappointment. We think something is wrong with us, or with our partner, or with love itself. Today, we're going to take off these rose-colored glasses, ruthlessly, but with love. I'll share with you that very brutal truth about what it really takes for strong, healthy, truly deep, and long-term relationships. And this, spoiler alert, isn't always about fanfare and butterflies in the stomach, but it's always about real, living depth. And this isn't just theory. We'll break down what specifically you can do so that your relationships become not just another copy of a movie fairy tale, but your own unique, strong, and authentic story. Ready? Then let's go. It might seem, what does getting to know yourself have to do with it if we're talking about relationships with another person? Well, here's how. We are often instilled with this beautiful idea. Find your other half and you'll become whole. Sounds incredibly romantic, doesn't it? But it's one of the most dangerous traps. Think about this. If you feel incomplete, half empty without someone, who will you really be looking for? Not a partner, but a patch for your inner holes. You will unconsciously expect another person to make you happy, fill your emptiness, solve your problems. But this is an unbearable burden for anyone, even the most loving person. It's like trying to build a house on a swamp. Anyone who comes to you in this house risks drowning with you in this quagmire of expectations and dissatisfaction. Each of us, whether you like it or not, has our own backpack on our shoulders. In this backpack is our past experience, childhood grievances, teenage complexes, failed relationships, fears, insecurities, family scenarios that we absorbed without even realizing it. And if we don't unpack this backpack, don't look inside, and tidy up, we will unconsciously dump its contents onto our unsuspecting partner. An example, certainly. If you weren't praised much in childhood, if you didn't feel valuable enough, in adult life you might constantly, exhaustingly demand confirmation of your significance from your partner. Even if he sincerely loves and values you, it will always feel not enough for you. You will look for a catch, doubt, not because the partner is bad, but because an old wound inside you hasn't healed and constantly aches. Or another example, if you grew up in a family where parents constantly fought and didn't respect each other, you might either panic at any conflict in your relationships, hushing up problems until the last moment, or conversely, unconsciously reproduce the same behavior model because you simply don't know any other. So, what to do before actively searching for the one, or even if you are already in a relationship but feel something is wrong? Stop and ask yourself some very honest questions. Right now, let's try. Who am I really, unvarnished? What is truly important to me in life, in relationships? What are my strengths? What can I rely on? And where are my blind spots, my weaknesses, my, let's say, inner demons or bugs in my head? What am I ready to accept in myself and what not so much yet? What are my expectations of a partner and of relationships? And attention, are you ready to give the same in return? This isn't about a market exchange. You give me, I give you. It's about honesty and understanding that relationships are a two-way street. You can't expect 100% acceptance from a partner if you yourself are not ready to accept their imperfections. You can't demand support if you yourself are not ready to provide it. Understand, strong, healthy relationships don't begin with a desperate search for an ideal partner who will magically solve all your problems. They begin with becoming more honest, more whole, more conscious yourself, so that you enter into relationships not out of need, not out of fear of loneliness, but out of a desire to share your already existing fullness, your warmth, your joy, and be ready to accept the fullness of another person. This is difficult, inner work, yes, sometimes unpleasant, but without it, any relationship risks turning into an attempt to patch each other's holes, and that, alas, is a path to nowhere. So we've sorted ourselves out a bit, but then he or she appears on the horizon. Butterflies in the stomach. The world takes on new colors. The heart beats faster. This is a wonderful, magical time. But it's precisely here that another cunning trap awaits us, the trap of our own illusions. Recall the very beginning of your relationships or that dizzying infatuation. Often, during this period, we see not so much the real person as our own expectations and fantasies, which we, like an artist on canvas, project onto them. We draw in qualities for him or her that may not exist at all, or we greatly exaggerate those that do, especially if we really, really want to believe that this is him, her, the one, my destiny. Where do these ideal images that we fall in love with so easily come from? For the most part, they live within us. Inside each of us, believe it or not, there exists a somewhat vague, but very powerful ideal image of a partner. It's formed like a mosaic from many pieces, from childhood impressions of parents or their absence, from favorite book heroes and movie characters, from friends' stories, from our own unfulfilled desires, and even from those qualities that we ourselves lack. And so, without noticing it ourselves, we begin to search in the external world for someone who will match this inner picture as much as possible. For example, a woman who lacks decisiveness and support in life may unconsciously look for a superhero who will solve all her problems and protect her from all adversity. And a man who lacks emotional warmth or the ability to care may look for an ideal homemaker and mother who will surround him with comfort and understanding. We look outside for what is actually a reflection of our inner needs, or even those parts of our personality that we ourselves have not developed or do not accept. And so, when we meet a person who even slightly resembles this inner stencil of ours, we joyfully exclaim, "This is it!" And we actively begin to put this ideal image onto them, often ignoring signals that say, "Hey, I'm a little different." Time passes, the honeymoon period, the first few months, or even a year or two. The rose-colored glasses gradually slide down the nose, or even shatter completely, and we begin to see the real person, with all their merits, which perhaps no longer seem so supernatural. And, yes, with their flaws, quirks, habits that used to be endearing and now irritate. And then often comes the sacrosanct, "You've changed. I fell in love with a completely different person. Where did it all go?" And now, brutal truth number 2. Very often, it's not the partner who has changed so much. Your perception has changed. You've finally seen the real them, without your additions, without the filters of your expectations. And this disappointment is, in fact, most often disappointment in your own illusions, in the image you created for yourself. It's painful, yes, but it's also an incredibly important moment. It's a chance to build a relationship with a real person, not with a ghost from your head. The key here is to learn to recognize your projections. Ask yourself, is what I now see in my partner, or what fascinates, irritates me about them, really them? Or is it something of mine that I've hung on them? Learn to see and accept a person as they are, with all their baggage, just as we learn to accept our own. This doesn't mean tolerating unacceptable behavior. No, it means giving the other person the right to be themselves, not to conform to your ideal. And this, my friends, is already a huge step towards real, not imaginary intimacy. Well, we've understood that first, you need to get to know yourself, then try to see the real partner, not your fantasies. What's next? And then the most interesting part begins. What romantic movies usually keep silent about? They usually end at the most interesting part, a wedding or a passionate kiss. But in real life, this is just the beginning. The beginning of a journey where there will be not only sunny days and rainbows. And here's brutal truth number 3. Relationships are not a salvation from loneliness and not an eternal holiday. Relationships are work. Sometimes very hard, daily, painstaking work. And this doesn't mean there's no joy, lightness, and happiness in them. There is, and a lot of it. But they don't happen by themselves, as if by magic. Relationships are not a cozy hammock you can jump into and swing relaxedly for the rest of your days, doing nothing. Rather, it's a garden you've decided to plant together. For it to bloom and bear fruit, it needs constant tending, watering with attention and care, fertilizing with positive emotions and support, weeding out, dealing with misunderstandings and grievances, protecting from pests, from external negativity or your own destructive impulses. We are very afraid of conflicts in relationships. It seems to us that if we argue, if disagreements arise, it means love is fading. Something has broken irrevocably. This is another myth we need to debunk. Conflicts, friction, crises. This is not the end of the world. It's an absolutely normal, moreover, a necessary part of the development of any healthy relationship. Conflicts are like red warning lights on the dashboard of your shared car. They show where it hurts, where your deep needs are not being met, where misunderstanding has arisen, where your values have clashed. Ignoring these signals is like putting a band-aid over the check engine light and hoping the car will drive on without problems. It won't. Sooner or later, it will break down. It is precisely in overcoming these pain points together, in honest, albeit very difficult emotional conversations, that relationships are tempered like steel and become truly deep. You get to know each other from new, not always pleasant, but very real sides. You learn to understand each other's hidden motives, fears, vulnerabilities, and this brings you closer if you are ready to go through it together. So, what uncomfortable conversations and actions actually strengthen the bond rather than destroy it, as it sometimes seems to us? Firstly, it's the ability to talk about your feelings, not to accuse, you always, you never, but to speak from your own perspective. When you do, say that, I feel hurt, misunderstood, lonely, scared. It's scary, it's vulnerable, it's much easier to yell or stay silent, harboring resentment. But it's precisely I statements that open the door to understanding. Secondly, it's the ability to listen and hear, not just waiting for your turn to speak, but really trying to understand what's behind your partner's words. What of their needs are not being met? What are they really trying to tell you, even if the form isn't the best? Thirdly, it's the readiness to admit your mistakes and ask for forgiveness. Sincerely, this isn't weakness as many think. It's immense strength and maturity. And it's the ability to forgive. Not to carry a bag of old grievances with you, poisoning the present. And finally, it's a joint search for solutions. Not who is right, who is wrong, but how can we together make it so this problem no longer arises, or so that things get better for both of us? Yes, it's work, and it requires courage, patience, empathy. But it's precisely this work that turns a simple I love you from a beautiful phrase into a daily, conscious action. And it's this that builds that very indestructible foundation that will withstand any life storms. We've already talked about self-knowledge, illusions, and that relationships are work. Now let's look into the very heart. What is true intimacy? Many think that intimacy is primarily passionate sex, romantic dates, constant declarations of love. Yes, these are important and pleasant parts of a relationship, but this is the tip of the iceberg. True, deep intimacy is something much greater and much more subtle. To begin with, let's distinguish superficial infatuation from deep attachment. Infatuation is fireworks, it's chemistry, it's adrenaline, it's butterflies. It's a wonderful, intoxicating feeling, but it's usually not long-lasting in its initial intensity. It's based on novelty, on idealization, on strong physical attraction, deep attachment, true intimacy. It's more like a quiet, steady, warm fire that warms you from within for many years. It's built not so much on hormonal surges as on deep knowledge of each other, on acceptance, on shared experiences, both joyful and difficult. It's when you know a person without makeup, with all their wrinkles, soul scars, and bugs, and still choose to be with them. And here we come to brutal truth. Number 4. True intimacy is impossible without vulnerability. What does this mean? It means risking being your true self, not an ideal version of yourself for your partner. Often, we are so afraid of being rejected, misunderstood, that we try with all our might to show only our best sides. We are always strong, always cheerful, always understanding, always sexual. We put on the mask of the ideal boyfriend or ideal girlfriend, but beneath this mask hides a living, real person with their weaknesses, fears, doubts, quirks. And as long as this mask is on you, your partner loves the mask, not you. True. Intimacy is only possible when you both risk taking off these masks. When you allow your partner to see you in all ways, funny, sad, angry, confused, and wrong, and discover that they still choose to be by your side. It's about not being afraid to say, you know, I'm having a terrible day and I feel like a complete nobody, or I'm scared we won't make it, or I don't know what to do in this situation, help me. It's about showing your unattractive sides and not being judged for it. How do you build such a space where you can be vulnerable and real? This is the creation of a safe space in a relationship. It's when you feel completely safe next to a person. Not only physically, but also, which is much more important, emotionally. You know that you won't be judged for your feelings. Your dreams won't be ridiculed. Your trust won't be betrayed. It's a space where you can make mistakes, and you'll be helped to fix them, not have your nose rubbed in it. Where you can be weak, and you'll be supported, not turned away from. Where you can grow and change, and we all change over time. And your partner will rejoice in your growth, not try to keep you in old frames, even if it's more convenient for them. It's when you don't just love each other with an abstract love from songs, but when you are a real team. Two captains of one ship who look in the same direction together, support each other in a storm, and rejoice in the sun together. And everyone knows they can rely on the other, that their back is covered. This is true intimacy. It's not always loud and spectacular. More often it's quiet, deep, and very, very strong. And it's worth working for. And one more important point, often forgotten in the pursuit of the perfect couple. Strong relationships are not only what happens between two people, but also how they exist in the world as two separate but connected individuals. Flowers, dinners, romance, these are all wonderful spices to the main dish. But what is your we built on in the long term? It's shared values and possibly shared goals. It's not necessary to coincide 100% in everything. That's impossible and boring. But it's important that key life orientations, what is good for you and what is bad, what is important and what is secondary, where you want to move in life, are similar or at least mutually respected. And here's brutal truth number 5, which surprises many. For strong relationships, it's very important to have your own life and interests outside of these relationships. Yes, you heard correctly. Love doesn't mean dissolving into each other until you completely lose yourself, forgetting about your friends, hobbies, dreams. This is a path to dependence and ultimately to boredom and disappointment. Each of you should have your own interests, your own personal space, your own time for yourself. This doesn't push you apart. On the contrary, it enriches the relationship. You bring new experiences, new impressions, new thoughts to the couple. You remain interesting, multifaceted individuals for each other. You have something to share besides discussing everyday problems. Healthy relationships are not the merging of two halves into one amorphous whole. It's a union of two whole, self-sufficient people who choose to be together because they are better, more interesting, warmer, together than alone, not because they can't survive without each other. It's respect for the partner's individuality and for your own. It's the ability to be not only we, but also two separate, complete I's who support and inspire each other on this path. So, friends, let's remove the last remnants of rose-colored dust from our glasses and look truth in the eye. What is really needed for strong, long-term, happy relationships instead of all this movie tinsel that looks so beautiful but gives so little? Firstly, honesty with yourself, a deep understanding of yourself, your bugs, your true needs, your baggage from the past. Without this, you'll be looking not for a partner, but for a savior or a crutch. Secondly, the ability to see the real person, not your fantasies, expectations, and projections that you've hung on them. To accept that they are different, separate, with their own merits and flaws. Thirdly, readiness to work. Relationships are not a resort. They are a marathon requiring effort, patience, wisdom, and a desire to grow together. Conflicts are not the end, but an opportunity to become closer. Fourthly, the courage to be vulnerable and real. True intimacy is born where there is no fear of showing your weaknesses, where you can take off the mask and be accepted as you are. Fifthly, deep respect and support. Respect for the partner's personality, their boundaries, their right to be different, and support. Not only in joy, but also, more importantly, in difficulties. And finally, acceptance of imperfection, your own and your partner's. Perfect people don't exist. Perfect relationships, like in the movies, don't either. But there are real, living, warm, and very strong ones. And perhaps the most brutal and at the same time most liberating truth is that all of this, acceptance, understanding, work, vulnerability, must be learned throughout life. There's no magic pill, no universal secret to perfect relationships that you can read in a book and immediately become happy. There is a path that you choose to walk together, every day making a small but important choice in favor of each other, in favor of your connection, in favor of love that is not afraid of the truth. So forget about Hollywood scripts with their eternal happy endings after a couple of beautiful gestures. Start writing your own script. Honest, deep, real. Yes, it won't always be easy and cloudless. There will be tears, difficulties, and moments when you want to give up everything. But it will be yours, unique. And such love, built on truth, effort, and mutual growth, is far immeasurably more valuable and stronger than any, even the most beautiful movie fairy tale. And what do you think about this? What unromantic, at first glance, things do you consider truly important for strong relationships? Share your opinion, your experience in the comments below this video. I'd be very interested to read them. If this video was useful for you, if it made you think or discover something for yourself, please give it a like. It will greatly help promote the channel. Subscribe so you don't miss new deep dives into important life topics. And remember, real relationships are not about finding the perfect person who will make you happy. It's about becoming such a person who is ready to build happiness together with another equally imperfect but real person. Thank you for being with me today. See you next time.